out, but I have something that is absolutely 100% pertinent that came from a longtime listener of the show. He sent me an email, and I just want to share this. I'm not going to share his name because I didn't have time to ask permission, but this is from a retired UCA person. So a team member from UCA emailed to compliment us on the show and said, "Your program and most others focus on income streams, and for good reasons. I offer that you consider spending additional time on spending controls. Nobody who spends all their disposable income can save for retirement. Retirees must limit spending if concerned," and we use the word afraid, "if they're concerned about running out of money." And then he shared with me a phrase that came from his dad. He said his dad grew up during Great Depression, went through war times and all of that, and he never had a mortgage, he never had a credit card, and so his dad made a lot of wise decisions about money over the years. And his dad's phrase was this: save for what you want, spend for what you need. And I think we get want and need greatly blurred. Those lines between want and need are very blurred. And so, again, to our contributor to the show, thank you. I'm not going to share your name, but thank you so much for sending that in. And it's very on point with what we're talking about, because I don't think people have a clue really how much money they spend every single month.
Christian, you spent 21 years with a company that really does focus on retirement income. And this question of how much money you need in retirement is one that really is baffling to everybody all across the country. It's not just GenWealth clients that walk in and say, I need to retire, and we ask them that question, that they get that deer in the headlights look. It's everybody's problem.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, when you listen to the so-called experts, they talk about, 60% of your standard income. I've seen lots of research over the years where we really start to talk about the reality of retirement and what you're going to, and finding objectives to spend your money on. What is going to be your purpose as well, I think, is a big thing. And then the proverbial quote unquote sugar rush that happens when you retire. You usually spend that first 2 or 3 years traveling, doing all the things you want, and then all of a sudden you kind of get into I would say a consistent spending habit. And the bottom line is to your point, John, and to your point, Janet, it is a spending issue, and it's an organizational issue. I think at the end of the day, when I meet with clients, it's just kind of walking them through, where are you spending your money, and having those conversations on the required income versus the desired income, right? As we like to call it, the hug money, housing, utilities, groceries, gasoline, those types of things. And as we go through those conversations, it kind of it bears out that, to your point, John, they really haven't ever sat down and thought about it. So again, just getting organized is huge.
Christian, you hit on a very key word there, and the word is habit. I was actually talking to my pastor earlier this week, and I said, if at different stages of life, if church is nothing else, attending church is a habit. You either have the habit or you don't have the habit. And if you have the habit long enough, then it begins to mean more to you because you develop relationships, that type of thing. But at its minimum, it's a habit. And I think a lot of people don't think about habits very often, particularly with regard to their finances. And if you drive the same way to work every day, you're going to pass the same fast food restaurant. And so do you stop for Starbucks, $5 coffee? Or do you swing by any of the other fast food places to grab a chicken sandwich or whatever on the way in? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But think about what your habits are and whether they are related to your needs or your desires. And I don't have anything against doing any of those things periodically, but not on a regular basis if you're not able to move yourself forward in life.
Janet, I was thinking as we were discussing this whole retirement income thing, and we talk about this a lot, but I want to really overemphasize it on today's topic, because this is an educational process. As you're going through the ins and outs of preparing for retirement, you come here at GenWealth and you go through an educational process. And part of that educational process is the fact that you need to buckle down and figure out what your needs, wants, and wishes are. And the first thing that you've got to concentrate on is your needs. everybody really wants to talk about the wants and the wishes that they have in retirement because they've been waiting so long to do those fun things that they've been talking about doing. But those wants and wishes have got to be supplanted by the needs, because you have to cover those needs first thing.
Guys, let's talk about why it's important to distinguish between required income and desired income, because I think a lot of people, it's just income, and they're not labeling it as this is a necessity, this is a desire. They don't think about it like that. But in retirement, that can become very important, a critical line in the sand to go, these dollars are required and these are desired. Do you guys want to touch base on that a little bit?
Yeah, Christian, I was thinking about a phrase that I've heard through my training and Janet, by the way, just passed her RICP, Retirement Income Certified Professional Program. Our training as RICP professionals basically tells us that there is a strategy in retirement called safety first. And safety first really means that if everything hits the fan, you don't have to worry about your basic needs, that you're basically in a position where you have accounted for the safety of providing for those basic needs first.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, obviously our passion, and I think a big aspect of the culture at GenWealth is making sure that our clients maintain their independence and their dignity as they move to and through retirement, right? So, you know, let's stop all the cars. Let's sit down and have a conversation, right? I think that's another big part of it too, from my perspective, is you know, we're busy. Life is coming at us fast. And I think a part of the reason why people don't necessarily understand what their required and desired income is because they're so busy. And so just taking the time to stop, sit down with a professional, and talk about the fact that we're going to engage them and really myopically go through their budget and help them identify that required income. It's just something that from my perspective, not too many people do, right? It's I don't know if it's out of fear or if it's out of just busyness, but ultimately at the end of the day, what I've seen in the meeting rooms from my engagement with the clients is that there's just this sense of absolute complete relief that that overcomes them once they take the time to do that. And to your point, John, I mean, the required component of this, it's non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
This is can you retire or can't you retire, really, right?
So let's walk through that a little bit in like a good market and in a not so good market. I mean, we've been very blessed, frankly. You know, there've been some bumps in the road, but frankly, since the turnaround in March of 2009, after the downturn in 2008, we had the COVID bubble. That was a significant deal, but for a short period of time. But basically, the market's just been in an upward movement, and so we have people who are scared to retire because they're scared, like, what if the market turns around? Because at some point it's going to. That's inevitable. So they get this tremendous fear, frankly, anxiety about retiring. And this is why we look at required income and desired income separately, so that if everything in the market just loses its mind completely and your investments are not looking like they should look anymore, then it's okay, because you have a certain amount of guaranteed income that covers every penny of your required needs. Your required spending needs are covered on a guaranteed basis through pensions, if you have them, Social Security, and then some other income sources that would come to you on a guaranteed basis based on what you have determined is your required income. And then on top of that, even in a bad market, that desired income is segmented based on when you're going to use it, so that it's not subjected to the volatility of the market until you don't need it for another 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I think that we often get misled by the pop culture and the media that talk about the fact that the cornerstone of retirement planning is really hinged on how much you're able to save on your own, and that is an important component. But the cornerstone of retirement planning is how much income you can count on a regular basis to pay your basic needs: food, clothing, transportation, shelter, the hug thing that Christian talked about, housing, utilities, gasoline, things of that nature. all those things are things that life would be dramatically different if you didn't have the money to pay for them. If you just kind of think about that, what would be dramatically different in your life if you didn't have the money to pay for it? List those items. That's probably what needs to be in that required income amount.
Yeah, it's not as big of a challenge to get to that number. And then, Christian, the way we come up with the desired amount is, frankly, after the required needs are met, what does everything else look like? What does your portfolio have the capacity to do at that point?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think once you start to analyze those components of retirement, like you said just a moment ago, Janet, I'll bring that back up, is you got to kind of put them into separate buckets. I think what's happening nowadays is we've been on markets just hit all-time highs yesterday on most of the major indices, and people are very linear thinkers, right? I think what was good yesterday is good today is going to be what tomorrow. It's going to be good tomorrow. So I think we've all been in this business long enough to know that the markets don't always go up.
Right.
And when it comes to desired income, you need to have a plan as it relates to that income. And the way that we do it at GenWealth is through that bucketing strategy, and primarily that short-term bucket's what protects people if, and more importantly, when the markets will correct, because it's just a matter of time.
You're absolutely right about that, Christian. Recency bias has gotten more people in trouble than almost anything when it comes to investing. And I really believe that if we think about recency bias like that, and the fact that you think whatever's happening right now is always going to continue to happen, it doesn't happen that way. And that's why you really need to know where you stand. And you can actually have an opportunity to get a peek at having a successful retirement by visiting 15minuteretirement.com. That is the number 15minuteretirement.com, and get a checkup on where you are. Now, this isn't a comprehensive plan, but it is a plan to get you down the road a little bit, and then we'll give you an intro to a GenWealth advisor. You can text the word checkup to 501-381-5228 to get your free retirement checkup. We're back in a moment.
At GenWealth, one of our standards is that we have a unified purpose. Now, there's an internal aspect to that, and then there's an external aspect. All of us internally on the GenWealth team are working toward one purpose. At GenWealth, one of our standards is that we have a unified purpose. Now, there's an internal aspect to that, and then there's an external aspect. All of us internally on the GenWealth team are working toward one purpose, but that purpose is to work with you, our clients, in whatever need you may have. John F. Kennedy said, "Efforts and courage are not enough without purpose and direction." I believe that one of the reasons many people have trouble getting up and going to work on a Monday morning is that they don't have purpose and direction in what they're doing. But we do, every day, every week, and that's your purpose. Whatever it is that you want to do in retirement, we're here to help you meet that purpose, which means you and the GenWealth team all together have a unified purpose.
Education-driven, strategy-based, team-delivered. That's how we roll on the Get Ready for the Future show, and we're back for more.
You've got a Gen Wealth advisor very near you if you're listening to this broadcast. We've got 7 offices across the state of Arkansas, North Louisiana, and Middle Tennessee. I'm Christian Von Allman joining us from Middle Tennessee as we talk about money with your name on it. I love the fact that that's the name of this show, Money with Your Name on It. That's what we want to provide in retirement, is money with your name on it. So we've talked a lot in the first segment today about securing that required income for your retirement. And when you think about retired income, I would secure income for your retirement to pay the basic needs that you have in retirement. That's what we're talking about. Food, clothing, transportation, shelter, taxes, insurance, money that really does support your basic living expenses. Janet, I want to move into talking a little bit about the fact that you can't just put everything in a safe bucket, so to speak, to be able to really have a successful retirement. There has to be a growth element in here if you're going to keep up with inflation and many other things that growth element allows you to take care of.
Well, I think it's important for people to understand that, you know, the risk that gets the most attention in terms of retirement is market risk.
Yes.
If you turn on the news every day, you're going to hear a report on the market. It might be a good day, it might be a not so good day, but you're going to hear that report every single day. It's on your iPhone, it's everywhere. But what you don't hear is the same thing that's happening every day, and that is gasoline costs a little bit more than it did 2 weeks ago, or milk costs a little bit more, and you know, whatever it is that you're having to buy. I say you don't hear that. We've been talking about the gasoline pumps for a while now, but but as far as day in, day out, even in a normal inflationary environment, it's not something that people are focused on, and especially not focused on the fact that those prices are increasing at a higher rate, a faster rate than your bank account is. So if you have your retirement money sitting in the bank, I'll grant you this, you have protected it from market risk. But rather than having it exposed to some degree of market risk, you have readily welcomed inflation risk into your home. And I won't even call it risk anymore. It is reality, because the dollars in your bank account are not going to keep up with inflation. And people just don't see that as a risk. They'll fuss about it when they see gas prices going up, but are you taking any action to deal with inflation risk? Because it is as important as, and sometimes more important than, market risk.
Christian, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, if inflation is going to be something that's going to be here to stay, and we hope it's transitory, but there's lots of talk about the Fed and things going on there, and we could talk about that all day long. Ultimately, at the end of the day, to your point, Janet, you have to invest in the companies that create the inflation. So you have to have some of the money invested in things like the stock market and real estate and things that actually help protect you from inflation. And that there's a delicate balance there. I had a client come in the other day, and he's got 85% of his money sitting in a bank account, just like you had said, Janet.
Yeah.
And just having that conversation with him, like, listen, I understand you're concerned, but it's inflation and longevity risk that you're looking straight in the face, and we can help you with that ultimately and find that balance.
You're doing keywords. We need to do Christian's keywords of the day, and this one was balance. And that's exactly where I was about to go, was to balancing that out. And a lot of people, like I was saying earlier, they're terrified of the market, so they, without knowing it, readily accept this inflationary monster. But we can't go all one way or all the other. Those are both equally wrong answers. We have to be able to find balance between the two.
I'll throw this client story. I visited with a client the other day, and he was talking about, in our plan, the income for life model actually shows an accelerating amount of income, an increasing amount of income throughout your retirement. And his comment was, you know what, I don't need that much income at 80. I need to have that much income now, and I need less income when I'm 80 because I'm not going to be doing as much. And I had to walk through the inflation story with him as it relates to income. And I say, look, you need to understand that if you back up the timeline 20 years back from today, 20 years ago, if you were bringing in $6,000 a month in income 20 years ago, today, to buy the same stuff that you bought with the $6,000 20 years ago,
Yeah.
you're going to need about $9,161 per month to buy the same stuff. And that, to me, is just one of those things that's so easy for people to not get their brain wrapped around, because inflation is one of those things that is not headline news, people screaming about it all the time.
Right.
It is a very insidious threat to your retirement.
So let's talk about the rule of 72 for just a moment. We talk about that in terms of investments growing, but you can use the same calculation to talk about your expenses growing. And so the deal is, if you're figuring your return on your investment, it's supposed to help you figure out how long it's going to take your money to double. So if you're invested and getting, let's say 6%, well, 6 goes into 72 12 times, so a 6% return investment would double every 12 years. So now let's take that and talk about expenses on inflation. Even if inflation is 3%, okay, and people are talking about higher inflation rates, but let's just say that it's at a steady 3%. Well, if you divide 3 into 72, it'll go into 72 24 times. So that means that today's expenses of $5,000 24 years down the road, if we just get 3% inflation, are now $10,000 to buy the same thing. So I understand, John, what you're talking about. I mean, the client sees, I'm good on $5,000 now, and then they see on the plan that 25 years down the road, we're giving them $10,000 a month, and they're like, can I have some of that now? But it's the same purchasing power as the $5,000 today, and it really takes a while for that to process.
Now, I don't want to mislead anybody that's into thinking that we can't front load your retirement.
We can and do.
We can and do that from time to time, but you still have to account for that inflationary increase. Even though your spending is going to slow down on things like travel and entertainment and things like that, and the fun things that you've been wanting to do, it's going to get replaced by healthcare costs and things of that nature. And Christian, that's the other thing that a lot of people really just kind of like to whistle in the dark and almost ignore is the cost of healthcare.
Yeah, I had a client in here the other day. We were looking at long-term care expenses, right? So just looking at, not nursing home, but just like, more or less the retirement communities, and looking at the projections that the companies are giving us on those, and it's substantial. I mean, it's an adult number, as I like to say.
Yeah.
And there's, I've had a lot of, you guys know, I've had a lot of access to a lot of retirement experts, specifically retirement income experts in my life. And there's a gentleman by the name of Moshe Molesky that comes to mind as we're having this conversation. And one of the things we got to realize is that while you're working in your prime working years, as your 40s and 50s and early 60s, you're a stock. You're bringing in lots of income, and you're investing that, and you're growing your wealth. But then once you retire, you really become a bond. And obviously there's, you can get growth in your portfolio and those types of things, but really the fixed expenses, to your point, John, whether it be healthcare, medicine, gasoline. In fact, there's a we all heard of the CPI index, the Consumer Price Index, which people talk about a lot as a gauge of inflation. There's actually a specific index called the CPIE, which is an index for the elderly to look at the expenses that you would typically have in retirement, and it's usually significantly higher than traditional inflation. So definitely something we want to be focused on.
That Moshe Molesky information you were talking about is spent a lot of time in that through the RICP program, and you're talking about human capital basically, and you have the capacity to work and earn more income, but then as you get to the point of retirement, you don't, and so your capital has to work for you rather than you working for your capital, if you will, and so they've done studies, lots of them, that actually show the increased probability of success in retirement based on having not less in the equity markets, but more. And it's really counterintuitive to how people feel about investing, but the numbers are what you can't argue with the data. It's there.
Yeah, and I hate to bring this up because we only have about 2.5 minutes left in this segment, because this is a can of worms.
Here we go.
And that is the issue of future taxes.
Yeah.
If you want to really get a scared look on people's faces, begin to talk to them about taxes. They already intuitively know that taxes are going to go up in the future, and all the money that we're spending on various things. I'm not passing judgment one way or the other whether that's a legitimate expenditure of money or not. I'm just saying at some particular point in time that bill's going to come due, and somebody's got to pay for that. And Christian, I think that just scares the bejeebies out of just about everybody these days.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, John, because that's one of the silent enemies, right?
Yeah.
When you think about the things that, you look at your 401k account, and we kind of talked earlier about it's not your number, it's your income that you're going to have off of that, right? But there's a mental accounting that goes on when you look at that 401k number. You're not concerned about inflation. You're not thinking about it, which is what we just had a lengthy discussion on. But the second silent enemy there is taxes. And boy, you got a big number, but it's as when we do the planning for people, whether it's required or desired income, you got to add that tax number on top of it, state, local, federal, so on and so forth. It's quite significant.
It is, and I think that if you understand, and I know that this is a fluid situation, that there's bills in Congress and they've changed up how they're doing things, and they've thrown some things out and they're keeping some things, but I think you've got to understand that there is an all-out effort to get people who make, let's use a number, a random number of about $400,000. If you make more than $400,000 in this country, the target is on you as far as taxes are concerned. The question becomes, when does that target begin to creep down into the middle class? Because as we have seen on examples before, if you taxed all of the rich people 100% of their income, it's still not going to make a dent in the debt that we've racked up.
Well, and I would argue that some of those people in that $400,000 range really are middle income, because the income is on paper in their business. And last, maybe 5 years ago, they were making $40,000 a year. They've created a business with a good income stream. They haven't moved that far in life, but those taxes are about to hit them like crazy.
Absolutely. If you want to know more about your retirement, just give us a call. 501-653-7355. 501-653-7355 to reach out to a Gen Wealth advisor near you to get your version of the Gen Wealth Ready to Retire process. It's customized just for you. Give us a call. We'll connect you with the right advisor in your area. We're back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Saving money.
So you'll have more stuff that you can get.
So, would you rather spend money or save money? You'd rather save money?
Yeah, I would get $1 and $1 after 2 days.
Do you know what a credit card is?
Yes.
What's a credit card?
Something that has money on it, and if you cash it in, you can pay with it.
But how does the money get on the credit card?
Bill Gates.
What about a car? How much money do you think it takes to buy a car?
100.
So for $100, what would your car look like?
A pink car that has glitter all over it.
So if I gave you what would you buy with it?
Maybe a car. 2, 3 houses. 100 wood. 2,000 toys. And infinity couches.
What do you think a 401k is?
A candy bar. Okay, a wafer with chocolate syrup on top, and then caramel on top, and then chocolate chips.
Would you cover it in chocolate?
Yeah.
Tell me everything you know about money.
That it costs a lot and that people get only a few things.
And if you save money, you can get stuff that you need.
From the Gen Wealth Radio Network studios, we're back with more of the Get Ready for the Future show.
We're talking about your income in retirement, putting your name on some money for retirement. You've got to know exactly what your required income is and your desired income can be, and you do that through the Ready to Retire process at Gen Wealth Financial Advisors. We are talking a lot about markets and things of that nature, but I want to talk about something that everybody's going to go, well, that's boring, but it's really not boring. It really is very much an essential piece of your retirement income planning, and that's Social Security.
Yeah.
And that's more complex than just going and filing and getting what they tell you to get. I was working with a client the other day, and he was resigned to the fact that his wife's been on disability. She's making a very small disability check because she only had a limited amount of work history, so a very small disability check. He didn't realize that she would actually qualify for a spousal benefit on his much larger Social Security amount. She'll qualify for anywhere from 33 to 50% of his Social Security benefit when she gets to be retirement age, and it's going to make a huge difference in their income in retirement.
I'm telling you, with well over 2,000 rules that apply to Social Security, it is unique for everybody who goes through the process, and it should be unique. And right now, I'm just going to be very transparent with the changes that they put in place since COVID started, as far as you being able to physically go into a Social Security office. You really need to have your game plan together. Like, it's more important than it ever has been before to really have a strategy already, because what happens now is you call a phone number and you set an appointment to talk with them, and then they're going to call you on that day at that time. And we set one with some clients today, and the time, I'm not kidding you, was 10:31, not 10:30, but 10:31 on that particular day, that they're going to get that call. But they have to know all the things to say and do on that day. It's not, well, let me ask you some questions. What if I do this, or what if I do that?
It's kind of like that call with Social Security is your one shot to get it all done.
It is. And by the way, do it early. Be sure you talk with a financial advisor and get this done early, because this particular couple is planning to retire at the end of January. There are 0 appointments available for them for the rest of the year. And now it'll all work out. They'll call them on a canceled appointment, but think about how nerve-wracking that is for them. They were trying to do this 3 months in advance, and they're being pushed. So be sure that you've got a plan and that you start on it early.
So, Christian, I want you to think about the situation that most people are in. They're winging it through this. They're saying, I need a Social Security check, so I'm going to call Social Security, and I'm going to get what I can get. How big of a mistake is that?
It's a big mistake, John. It's ultimately at the end of the day, Janet, you kind of referred to the number of rules out there. I had a young lady that I work with. I do seminars here locally in Nashville with about Social Security and Medicare, and she called me yesterday and had a client, and he was just wondering, hey, should I take Social Security or not? Well, I had literally 5 questions for him right off the bat that take you different directions on, that are impactful. They're seriously impactful to the dollar amount that he's going to get. The amount of income, especially how that plays in with all of the other assets that they have, and so on and so forth. So to me, Social Security is something you definitely want to prepare for, and really it takes a really strong knowledge of even the software system that we use to help them calculate the best possible outcome for them.
Man.
It's really complex.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because we've always done Social Security planning here at GenWealth. But today we have got a new version of our Social Security planning software that not only looks at all of the angles of Social Security as far as you're concerned, but it also takes into account your assets and your claiming strategy that you need to employ. And you can actually literally take that report and highlight a couple of things in it and be able to be prepared for that phone call with Social Security. Otherwise, you're just going to get what you're going to get, and it could make hundreds of dollars of difference, maybe even thousands of dollars of difference in the amount that you have coming in.
Yeah, and to be clear, I just talked about the phone call because that's the most recent experience. You can apply online, but we really want to be sure that you know what you're doing if you go that route, because there are so many different ways to claim that you need to be sure you're pushing the right buttons, so to speak, to go through that process. And like with this couple, they're already on a claiming strategy, and it's time to switch their claiming strategy, and you can't do that kind of deal online. So there are some things that you can do online and some things that require you to be in contact with an individual from the Social Security Administration.
So let's talk about the legitimate cousin of Social Security, and that's Medicare. And again, if you want to talk about a black hole of that people can fall into, it is this whole Medicare thing. And Janet, the report that we put together with the Social Security software actually does have a lot of great information about Medicare and how to approach it. But I'm finding amazing things as we have set up our insurance division and we're dealing with Medicare. I'm finding some amazing savings that we're finding for people in terms of how they're dealing with their supplemental coverage.
First of all, I don't think most people have any idea what to expect on Medicare expenses, and they're frankly more costly when you get the everything that you need to be covered. They're more costly than what most people are expecting. And so the experience we've had so far is that there are several people who, by going through this process with Tony Contorno, he's our Medicare guy, by going through this process with him, some of them are saving as much as a couple of $100s a month. Now, the key is to not look just at your premiums, but at your total cost. So what is the policy going to cover? But as importantly, what is it not going to cover? So what are you going to spend when you see a specialist? What are you going to spend when you buy the medications that are on your list? And if you may have a lower premium, but those costs are higher, and if you go see a specialist very often and you get those medications regularly, then your total cost is more. So it may sometimes make sense to pay more in premiums but have less total out-of-pocket expenses. And a lot of people who don't have a coach to walk through that with them, they just look at the premiums and go, that one's less, I want that one. And it can be a big difference maker.
And you're hearing a lot of noise about this right now because every insurance company in America is advertising because it is open enrollment.
Yes.
And you're getting all this stuff, and it might be low premium or no premium, and that sounds great especially for someone that's on a limited budget in retirement. Those low or no premium Medicare Advantage programs really sound good, but what we're finding is there are hidden costs to the consumer on the back end.
Can I just say there is a place for it. There is a place and a good fit for it for some people, but for many people, I feel like it is kind of almost a bait and switch, because you get pulled in on that lower premium, and then you don't really realize the overall total cost, and your guy's not around to answer questions in the future, and that just makes a difference. So that's why we're doing this. We wanted somebody that is on the GenWealth team to be able to be here for a phone call when you go, hey, this just changed, what do I do? And it may be sometimes you can't do anything until the next open enrollment period, but at least have got some options when that comes around.
And Christian, that is the portal to the big black hole of retirement, and that is uninsured health care expenses. If you have deductibles, co-insurance, things of that nature, things that are not covered by your Medicare coverages and your supplement coverages, then that can be a huge question mark for retirees.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, when you look at Social Security and you look at Medicare, there's a lot to consider, right? And especially on the Medicare front, some of the folks that I deal with here locally, and I know I've talked to Tony about this, is you have this superstar that does a commercial, talks about a Medicare Advantage, and what I think consumers need to understand is that these people are captive, right? They're specialists on that one particular plan, and when you call them, what are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about that one plan. What I like about the capabilities that we have at GenWealth is we have a specialist who's completely independent. I mean, from my knowledge of the Medicare world is there's 29 different plans that are accessible out there, and you need to find the one that's specific to you, your medical plan, your needs and your desires, and ultimately take into consideration, to your point, John, the fact that at some point in time, I mean, there's going to be some unexpected medical costs, and you need to have some cushion in your overall plan to make sure that you're padding for those unexpected expenses along the way, because it's just a matter of if and not when, right?
It clearly is, and Medicare is one of those things that kind of is a safety net for a lot of people, and it does cover a vast majority of the expenses, but as we know, our health begins to deteriorate as we get older, and that causes things to crop up that will expose you to those things that might not be completely covered by your coverage. So you do have to have that cushion, or that margin, as I like to call it. You can't consume everything that you have in producing your regular monthly income. You've got to have some leeway there to be able to deal with those things. And Janet, I'm assuming that we are dealing with people on a Medicare basis, just even if they're not a GenWealth client right now, they can come in and simply just work with us on the Medicare side.
Absolutely. I mean, it's open enrollment, so now, between now and December 7th, that window of time is available really for anybody in that Medicare age range. And then moving forward, like when you're coming up on turning 65, starting 3 months before your 65th birthday, we can walk through that process with you. Some people will still be working, and so they'll get A at that point, and they won't need to do anything about B for a while. But it's good to touch base and know that, okay, I know how this is going to work at the time that I retire. So I would just say, whether it's Medicare, Social Security, we've talked about inflation, we've talked about the market, all of those things, frankly, they all require a little bit of time with somebody where that's their area. Like, that's what they do for a living all day, every day, is deal with Medicare, deal with Social Security, deal with retirement income. And that's what our team is here for. We're here to serve you in those areas.
We packaged it up and I'll call it the GenWealth Ready to Retire process. And you can get involved in the GenWealth Ready to Retire process very simply. Just give us a call here at GenWealth Financial Advisors. We've got offices across the state of Arkansas, in Northwest Louisiana, and in Middle Tennessee, where Christian is located. You can give us a call here at our office at 501-653-7355. We would be more than happy to connect you with a GenWealth advisor near you to be sure that you can get your Ready to Retire process underway and get a lot of these bases covered that we've been talking about in today's show. We're back for the final segment of the Get Ready for the Future show in just a moment.
There's always been power in standing up for what you believe in, challenging the status quo, and never accepting the ordinary. What about the rest of your life? Will you settle? Or will your retirement be more? More fun, more family than finances, more than just investments. Connect with us at GenWealth and harness the power of more.
At GenWealth, one of our standards is we believe in balance, and it's really a twofold standard. For our team, we believe that you've got to work and you've got to do things the right way, but you also have to have some time off, and you can't do your job if your job is all you do. For our clients, we believe in balance because their investment portfolios need to take as much risk as they need to achieve their goals, but not so much risk that they lose everything that they've got. Balance is incredibly important in both our team and for our clients.
there are a ton of financial resources on GetReadyForTheFuture.com? No? Well, bookmark that page for later, because the Get Ready for the Future show is back.
We are back on the Get Ready for the Future show. You can clearly hear us on 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, on our great radio station that we've had an affiliation with for, golly, it's been what, 12, 14 years, something like that?
My daughter is 15, so it'll be 15 years in January.
That's how you keep up with it.
It is. It
Okay.
is. She came shortly after the radio show, or before. It'll be 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm actually going to go and,
yeah.
and visit with the guys on the Buzz on Thursday morning. By the time this airs on the Buzz, it'll already have happened. But for those joining us on Facebook Live, I'll be on the Buzz tomorrow morning with
Yeah.
Tommy and the crew.
That's great.
Tommy's retiring, and
I
so
know.
it's going to be fun to be up there and visit with him about
Yeah.
that. So if you've been listening to us on the show today and watching the show, you probably have been hit with a lot of different information. And I know it would be really easy for you to basically just say, well, I don't know about all that stuff. I just hope it works out. Hope is not a plan. It is absolutely not a plan, and you need a plan. You need the ability to weave your way through the complexity of all the issues that we've talked about on today's show, and be able to arrive at retirement and get through retirement with a roadmap. And I think that's really the key that I want to talk about in this segment, Janet, is that without a plan, all you really have is hope. And, sometimes hope works out, and sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't. I think it's important to just take the time to think through. We will sometimes ask, 10 years into retirement or whatever, how will we know that this has been successful? And people really kind of have to think about that, because they haven't taken the time to ponder, like, what's important to you, what matters to you in retirement. And part of that is the income level. That is a very significant part of it. Part of it is, how you're going to spend your time. But it comes back down to, we have to be intentional about that. Even if it's something as simple as, how are you going to spend your time? Then let's prioritize the big things first, the things that are most important to you. But that same philosophy holds true on the dollars. Like, okay, what's important to you? Well, it's important that we always, always, always have $4,000 a month. We can have more, that'll be great, but we must have this. Okay, let's plan for that, because it's likely not going to accidentally happen unless we if we intentionally plan for it, then the odds are far better in your favor than if we just hope. What is it Dan Arnold says? Luck favors the prepared.
Yes,
I think it is.
Dan Arnold, the CEO of LPL Financial, our broker-dealer,
Yeah.
guy we admire very much.
Yeah, he's fabulous, and one of his phrases is luck favors the prepared, and I would say that definitely holds true in your retirement. If you want to be considered lucky in retirement, then let's be prepared.
Christian, I know that oftentimes this planning thing can seem like a burden. It can seem like a lot of stuff to go through. We're busy. I don't have time to do all that. I don't know if that's something I want to just, commit several hours to or what have you. But the result of the plan is income. Income is the outcome of the plan. And I think that when you think about retirement with certain income is a lot better than retirement without certain income.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think, this is the part of this show today that I'm just extraordinarily passionate about, because, I grew up in a house with a dad that was a laundryman and a mom that was a State Farm insurance agent. And, we never thought that a financial advisor would ever want to talk to us, right? We never thought that anybody would want to help us develop a plan. And that could not be any further from the truth, from the culture and the systems that we've developed at Gen Wealth. We don't have minimums, and we don't have any snooty people, right? I think ultimately at the end of the day, there is no fairy godmother that's waiting for you that's got a magic wand for you when you turn 55 years old. It's just going to start giving you income. So the sooner you start talking to us, the more intentional you are about it, to your point, Janet, the better off you're all going to be.
Yeah.
And I can promise you that I know life is busy, but we're very patient people. When the time is right with you, we'll help you gather the information. We'll sit down with you. And the part I love about it most is just the conversation of finding out about what you just said, Janet, and that's the purpose. What is
Yeah.
what is the purpose behind all of this? And it's something that drives me every day, and I know it drives you too. You guys have created just an amazing culture within our organization, and we want to help you. So if you're listening to this show, and if you're thinking about, boy, I really need to do that, just give us a call. Shoot us an email on the website, and we'll set up a time, and we'll be patient about it. But to your point earlier, the last thing I'll say is preparation is separation, right? If you take the time to do this, you will have a sense of peace and a sense of calm and a sense of purpose that it's probably difficult to imagine for most people in this world that we live in nowadays, right? And if you can get peace at the end of this rainbow, definitely take the time to stop now, and make sure you don't regret not stopping later. That's all I'll say.
I want to kind of emphasize one other point, because we've been talking about planning and we've been emphasizing the importance of a plan. I think it really does bear fruit for us to talk about what is a plan.
Yeah.
Because how many times, Janet, have we had over the many years that we've been working together, had someone walk in and they've got their statement from their company that they've been doing business with, maybe their 401k, and go, "This is my plan for retirement." And it's really just investments.
It's an account.
It's an account
or multiple accounts, but it's not a plan.
Think about it as the seed of your plan. Yes, you do have a seed that you need to kind of develop into a plan, but having investments, or having a 401k account, or having a guy that does stocks for you is not a retirement income plan.
So, guys, we're just going to talk about some questions. Go ahead, Christian. You started to say something else.
I just, John, I'm sorry. As you know, in my previous life, 21 years of going in and meeting with 5 different financial advisors every day, from the biggest wirehouses, I won't name any names, but the guys in Wall Street with the big marble floors, to the banks and everywhere in between. And most financial advisors have a 2-sheet yellow pad of information where they jot down your information when they come in and meet with you, and then they have a standard list of investments that they invest you in. And there's no foundation there. There's no written plan. So when something goes awry, there's nothing for the client to go back and look at. And I think, to your point, John, a huge differentiator is with us, you have a written plan. It's a documented plan it's something that's physical. You can go back to when the markets get a little crazy, or when you have a change in your life, and you can engage with us on a consistent, ongoing basis to make sure that you're developing that. And to me, you just can't. It's really priceless in the long run.
So let's talk about some of the questions that a retirement plan, not a bunch of accounts, but a retirement plan should answer. Of the 86 different claiming strategies, which one is appropriate for me and which one is appropriate for my spouse? It should answer that for you.
For Social Security?
Yes, for Social Security. It should also answer which dollars are we going to use for income at what point in time. That's very important as far as your required minimum distributions. Lots of variables that go into that. It should answer your questions and concerns about taxes, whatever point that hits on for you. Whether you're concerned about capital gains, you're concerned about income taxes, you're probably concerned about both of them depending on what type of investment dollars you have. It should address what happens with the money when you're gone. And how much is even left at the time that you're gone based on an average life expectancy. It should address whether there's the ability to pay for long-term care needs. Odds are about 50-50 that one of you is going to need to have care. So do you have the ability to pay for that? Lots of different questions that a written retirement plan answers in a 3-ring binder that is personalized for you. And John, our team has literally done thousands of those over the years that we've been in business now, and there are absolutely no 2 that look alike, because every couple that walks in the door, or individuals, every single person who walks in the door at Gen Wealth has a different set of circumstances, and we just want to meet you where you are with that.
We are almost at the final bell. As a matter of fact, there it
Ding,
is.
ding.
How about that? How did I know that was going to happen?
You're so good. Hey, Christian, share with us, what are your final thoughts for today?
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I obviously, you guys can sense how passionate I am about the planning aspects of it. But, getting organized is something that I think is something that we all got to be cognizant of. We have to be understanding of the different components from a retirement aspect of the volatility of potential investments, understanding the Social Security, and then last but certainly not least, have that plan. I think we had a really great show today, and I just want to thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Janet?
So, final thoughts for me. The name of the show today is Money with Your Name on It. I would challenge you to think about what money has your name on it for retirement, and do you have, at this point, a written plan personalized for you about how you're going to receive that money with your name on it in retirement, and do you even know how much it will be? Not how much you have now, but how much income you will have as money with your name on it when you retire.
My final thought is we've talked a lot about income today, but income is not the only thing that retirement is about. There's a lot more to retirement than just income. You need to explore that, and each person, as Janet has alluded to, is different with their plan. Their plan for Medicare may be different than yours. Their plan for Social Security may be different than yours. Their plan for estate planning may be different than yours. That's why we have the Gen Wealth Ready to Retire process. It is a customized process that you can sign on to and work with your Gen Wealth advisor to get you where you need to go. And if you want to just get a peek at where you are right now for retirement, join us at 15minuteretirement.com. That is the number 15retirement.com, or text the word checkup to 501-381-5228. That's going to do it for this weekend's show of the Get Ready for the Future show.
The Gen Wealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com, or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors is an Arkansas-registered investment advisor with securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.